welcome back to the Fixing Football podcast with me, Martin Naylor, and as you can see, I'm joined by our friend Jim Daley. Jim, welcome, mate.
Thank you very much for having me, Martin. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for being here and being on the show. So this is a bit of a segment thing that I'm trying to get a bit more into. We've done a lot of our regular style episodes, and I just want to branch out a little bit and having someone like yourself. So for people that don't know, you're on the FYP podcast, which is the Crystal Palace podcast, one of the most popular outlets for Crystal Palace fans. And if people don't know you from that, they might know you from your stand-up career and the comedian side of you. So just for people who don't know, just give us a little bit of oversight of who Jim Daley is.
I feel like I'm being interviewed for a job. And what's your biggest weakness?
Yeah.
My biggest weakness is podcasts. Yes, I'm a Palace fan.
I feel like that.
Yeah, Palace fan, and I host the FYP podcast. Stands for 5-year plan. It's not a very, you don't think of Palace when you think of it. And to be honest, if I could go back 18 years and change the name, I would. But it's called 5-year plan because in 1998 we got taken over by a Palace fan called Mark Goldberg. And he said, I'm going to get you Palace in the Champions League. I've got a 5-year plan to get in Europe. And within 6 months, we were in administration, nearly went out of business. So it became like a real sort of like bête noire phrase of Palace. So anyway, that's why that's that. We can't, as you know, branding, once you stick with something, you can't change it. So we're FYP, 5-year plan. So yeah, hosted that for a long time with a few mates of mine, and we love chatting about Palace. I say we love chatting about Palace. We'll come on to this season, maybe not. But anyway, in theory, we talk about the team we love. Yeah, and aside from that, I'm a comedian and I guess content creator. Can a 41-year-old call himself content creator? That sounds a bit embarrassing, but yes, TikToker and YouTuber and all that rubbish that's really more for 22-year-olds. And I do.
Yeah, I feel your pain though.
It's bad, isn't it? It's bad. I would rarely introduce myself.
Yeah.
Certainly not at the school gate with my 2 kids. I don't say to people, "Hi, I'm Jim. I'm a TikToker," because they would think, "Sorry, why are you at the school gate? That's weird." But as with anyone doing comedy or content entertainment at the moment, you have to sort of be everywhere. So I've been doing stand-up a long time, 12 years, and I'm actually on tour this year, my first UK tour. So it's only taken me 12 years to do that. 6 dates, so we're going big.
And you're coming to Manchester as well?
And we're coming to Manchester, May the 3rd at Creatures Comedy Club. So nice. The tour's called Match of the Daly, which is a nice little play on the old last name pun, which I've always wanted. And it's a football-themed comedy show. And if anyone knows me from online, I do a lot of football-based sketches and parody songs and stand-up and stuff like that. So it's basically an extension of that.
I was going to ask you about that. Stage. Is that just where you gravitate to normally as a comedian? Or, I mean, is that the sort of content that you like creating? Or you just feel like that's where you're best for your engagement? I mean, where did you settle on? Because I'm sure all your comedy isn't like sport-based or football-based, but there's, good elements of it, and it's a good chunk of the social media presence for yourself. So what's the... but I'm asking for a little bit of a preview of the show more than anything here.
Thank you very much. Perfectly done. It's basically the first thing. Before I even started doing stand-up, I started making football parody songs online on YouTube, and they got a little bit of traction. I say a little bit, it's like 5k views here and there. This is like 15 years ago. So I just kept doing that basically, and that's built up my audience. But it's not like, that's not something I'm into. I'm a huge football fan. I'm obviously, as I said, Palace fan. Obsessed with any level of football. I will watch any football on TV, non-league, professional, men's, women's, I don't care. I'll watch it. So it's still very much a part of me. But you're right. When I go and do stand up at club nights and stuff, I do if I'm doing a 20-minute set, 5 minutes might be about football. I've got a bit about fantasy football, and I got a little bit about Crystal Palace and stuff. I'm working on a bit about non-league football as well, because I've really, really got into non-league football. Nice. But I also do stand up about my kids and about my life and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, when it comes to making the online content, that seems to be the stuff that resonates most. I have tried branching out into other areas, more sort of parent content, which is done okay. Maybe not hit in the same way that, a video taking a piss out of Arsenal will do, but it's, you've got to try these things. But yeah, no, I'm a huge football fan, and I'm very comfortable in that space, making content about football. But it depends on the gig. If I'm doing my show, then it will probably be about football. My first Edinburgh show was about football and becoming a dad. So it was called Football and Fatherhood. Nice. So I did combine it's actually about Tony Cascarino, weirdly, as well. So I did combine the both. And I got a funny story. He actually I was reading his book. It's a brilliant. It was out in 2000, so 25 years, 60 old. Great book, and it's the book where he revealed that he wasn't Irish because his mum was actually adopted. She had an Irish.
Right.
She was adopted by Irish
Right,
parents.
okay.
So, and he played like 75 times for Ireland. Obviously, no Irish blood, but anyway, it's quite sweet. The Irish FA still said, "Do you know what? To us, he's Irish." It's all fine. But I was reading his book, and in his book, he talks about what a bad parent he is, and I just found it so refreshing because, like most footballers' books, you know, like Wayne Rooney, Steven Gerrard, it's like, and I was buzzing at the end of the game, and then we beat Albania, and like with Cascarino, who was like, yeah, I was like shagging this, doing that. I was like, wow, this is really like. But when it came to talking about parent, he was like, I was a crap parent. It's really hard. The mums get too much crap, and I was like, wow, he's actually really. I really appreciate his openness. So I really related to a lot of the book as a new parent. So I thought, I'm going to make my show about him and about how actually, I mean, obviously, like for comedic embellishment, how Cascarino influenced me into how to be a better dad by being a bad dad and all this. And then I was able to bring in all my football content and all that. And I got his number because I'd worked with him at Yahoo, and I was going to get him at the end of the show to do a video. I was like, well, look, finally, here's a video from Cascarino. And I got his number and I rang him. And I told him who it was, and he didn't remember who I was at all. But he was like, no problem. Yeah, I'll do that for you, Jim. No problem. Rang him the next day. Yeah. Ring me tomorrow and I'll do it. Rang him again. He's like, I'm on the golf course, Jim. But yeah, ring me tomorrow. Rang him again. No answer. Rang him the next day. Voicemail. Yeah. Rang him the next day. Didn't even dial. I was like, uh-oh. Then I texted him. He was like, yeah, sorry, Jim. Yeah. I've been in Magaluf. But yeah, no problem. I'll do that. Text him the next day. No reply. Text him, no reply. And I was like, oh, well, I've got like 3 weeks of the show. I think I'm getting ghosted by Tony Cascarino. So in the end...
It's another good title.
Yeah. In the end, I had to rework the end of the show, and I got the video thing from a mate of mine, Dave, who's an actor, and he pretended to be Cascarino, and then I weaved Dave into the show, and it all worked out fine. But I then, at the end of all that, I then explained about getting ghosted by Cascarino. I put up all my text messages and stuff. So actually, I made it a whole part of the show.
I love it.
So anyway, sorry, to answer your question, yes, mostly football stuff, but not always. But that seems to be the stuff that resonates most. But obviously, I'm obsessed with football, so it ties in.
Yeah, and same. I mean, that's the birth of this podcast. Really was. I mean, I'm a DJ, so we're probably on the same schedule as well, and especially when it comes to kids, like my wife does a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to bedtimes and certain things like that. Thursday to Sunday, I'm out. My dad was a drummer, so he was on the same schedule. Like,
wow.
And it's just been this ongoing thing. So I could definitely relate to that about having that guilt of that dad guilt that you get, and then you watch one episode of Bluey and you're like, oh my god, I'm not.
but
I'm not the man I'm meant to be.
Bandit, for anyone who doesn't know Bluey, Bandit, the dad in that, it's basically ruined parenting for all fathers because he's such a good dad. He set the bar so high that he basically, whatever you do, you're like, well, I'm a shit dad compared to Bandit because I will never hit the heights of this dog father. But it's a great show. I mean, I would say I cry at least 70% of those episodes. It is such a beautifully observed show. It's fantastic. I think so my theory is it's actually made for parents. It's made for parents and kids can watch it rather than the other way around.
Yeah. The visuals engage the children and the audio is for us.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, let's do football. I'm an Arsenal fan. That comes with its own, let's say, toughening of it when you have to deal with social media and how you get through the day without being sent 25 memes about this and that. Being a Crystal Palace fan and a comedian, is that character building as well, or do you just set yourself up for these emotional ups and downs? I mean, you've gone from last season, the epic highs of an FA Cup, and you've had promotions, which I'm sure have been fantastic times, but they've come with relegations, obviously, as well. And like you say, you started on this with a 5-year plan, or the club did all these many years ago when you first got into it. So just talk to me a little bit about where you're at with Crystal Palace now and what you've sort of been through in the last 18 months, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, I think being a fan of any football club is character building, to be totally honest, apart from maybe Man City in the last 20 years. But even that, before that, they obviously had their ups and downs. Yeah, I'm a Palace fan because of my dad, which is a very sort of well-trodden path. And if we were chatting last year, I'd be saying, It's all been worth it. 33 years of support of this club, and we've won the cup. We're in Europe. It's all paid off. We've won the Community Shield.
Yeah.
And then in the last 6 weeks, we've gone right back to being Crystal Palace again. So to answer your question, yes, it is very character building. But as a fan in his early 40s, very early 40s, having supported them for the last 30-something years, to be honest, none of it surprises me. And actually, the ups and downs we've had, being in administration, nearly out of business twice, having to twice think about who am I going to support? Am I going to support a Phoenix club? Am I going to support Crawley Town? Like, what am I going to do? Which is a mad position to be in. To be honest, all the highs and lows that come with me now, or that come to Palace fans, they don't hit as hard as maybe a 22, 23-year-old Palace fan who's only seen Palace in the Premier League and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The last 6 weeks with losing to Macclesfield and Mateta wanting to leave and Glasner trying his best to be sacked and Gahey leaving and all that kind of stuff, it's just made me laugh. It's been great for my show because I've got a whole bit in my show about how Palace are the most ridiculous team in the world. So I really like that bit's now 45 minutes long, but it's just been very Palace. But I think the previous 30-something years has prepped me for that. But then that's being a football fan. You'll know that being an Arsenal fan. Like there's ups, there's downs. Your ups are probably higher than our ups, but there are ups and downs. And they're all relative. There'll be Accrington Stanley fans listening. There'll be Wigan fans listening. There'll be Southampton fans listening, saying, "Bloody hell, we should try going through what we've been through." Like it's all Bury fans.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's all relative. And I think, to be honest, being a football fan is actually a very, very good basis for being either a comedian or a comedy fan, because it gives you a real good understanding of sort of the pathos of life, the black and white, the up and down. Our clubs are giving us punchlines every Saturday and Sunday, so I think it actually helps. There's a ton of comedians that support Crystal Palace, an absolute ton.
Really? Is it a little club? The
ton. So
is it?
Kevin Day, who I met through the podcast, who's been going a long time, was on Match of the Day too.
Oh,
Mark Steele, Ronnie Corbett, R.I.P. Chloe Pett, Elliot Steele. There's tons of Palace.
I know Elliot Steele.
Eddie Izzard, Neil Morrissey, tons of Palace supporting comedians. So I think it is one of those clubs that maybe sets you up for life. So I guess really I had no choice. I wasn't always a comedian. I was a journalist initially, but I think supporting Palace just pushed me that way. And maybe it's just therapy, a way of dealing with the absolute ridiculousness of Palace. But yeah, I mean, listen, the last 6 weeks. They've been crazy. They've been headline making for all the wrong reasons. But having said that, we'll always have last year, not just won 2 trophies in a year. Never thought I'd see that. Probably will never see it again. Got to share that with my dad, who's the reason I'm a Palace fan. He's in his late 70s now. So, he might have thought he would never have seen that kind of thing. I've been to Europe 5 times this season. My kids have now got no college fund, but it's been worth it to go to, Bosnia and Norway and France to go and watch Palace get battered by, not Norwegian farmers. But it's all the dream. It's all everything we ever asked for. And I'm enjoying the journey no matter what it takes.
Of course. Right. I'm going to do a little segment on a bit more of the past, a bit more reminiscing, and then have a tiny quick break, and then we're going to come back with the current stuff, and we're going to hit hard and see what we can come up with, and maybe even come up with a fix for football. Who knows? This is just the chatting shit bit of the podcast where you just go, right, well, let's see what happens here.
That's the best stuff.
Yeah. We've always said, between us, so do this podcast with my brother and 2 of my closest friends, and we've always said, out of our club, so there's myself, Arsenal fan, my brother, Chelsea fan, my friend Liam, Bolton Wanderers fan, my friend Luke, Manchester United fan. So it's a big collection of different views and opinions going on. But we all say the coolest club in the Premier League is Crystal Palace. And that's not just because you're here today, but Crystal Palace comes up a lot. And I don't know if it's just because they're slightly different. It's where they sit, that they're not really a threat, but they're also good. And you know what I mean? It sort of falls in that bracket. Do you feel that? And if so, what makes Palace culturally different? They seem to do things very well. I don't know if that rings true with the fans who are a little bit more closer to it, but from someone who takes a step back, they seem to do a lot of the right things off the pitch, or the way they address things, or even just the vibe of players seems to be very similar. Because if one comes in who doesn't fit in automatically, and this isn't just Glasner's Palace, this is, going back through Hodgson and countless other managers, and Simon Jordan's time there is people who stick out like a sore thumb when they don't fit into that, and it's hard to put words to what that is. But does that ring true to you? And is that a thing that you can answer in a word that isn't just a vibe?
Yes, I can answer it in 2 words of the player that stands out like a sore thumb, and that's Brennan Johnson. But we won't go there. We'll move on from that. Poor guy hasn't had a good
Poor
start.
Brennan Johnson, honestly.
Oh, no. He seems really sweet, and weirdly, I know his best mate in football. His best mate is Johnny Williams, who used to play for Palace, so I've got to know through doing the podcast.
Right, okay.
They did a little video when they joined. It was so lovely, and Johnny's ringing up Brennan, and they're saying, "Welcome to Palace." And Johnny's a Palace legend. He's going, "Oh, it was great." And everyone's going, please, please, please work out. And then Brennan's had the worst 6 weeks, really. Poor guy's not got into any games. I mean, it's very early. Hopefully he'll come good. But it's been probably the worst time to join the club in terms of what we've been going through for any new player, to be honest. Absolutely worst. You're joining a club where the manager wants to leave, the club are in their lowest ever ebb, the striker wants to leave. It's a toxic place at the moment. But let's go back. Let's not talk about the toxicity of current Palace. It's nice to hear you say that Palace are a cool club, because I think deep down every football fan wants to kind of hear that and hopes their club is. I think we've got a lot of things going for us. I think our location in South London, the fact that is culturally very, very strong for us, really part of our identity. We really lean into that. We care a lot about being from South London. We've got an excellent charity attached to the club called the Crystal Palace Foundation that I do some hosting for sometimes, and they do incredible. I mean, they're literally saving lives on the streets of South London. All those people that work at the foundation nearly all of them are Palace fans. They're very passionate about what they do. And the club are very, very close to that. And I think that bleeds back into the club. And you get Glasner goes to events.
Love that, yeah.
Gay used to go to events. Eze went to events. Mateta, even though before he wanted to leave. So there's a strong cultural link there. I think the kit helps. It's a very cool kit, red and blue. It was literally, we stole it from Barcelona in 1976, but it lends itself to more of a European kind of vibe. If we were claret and blue, like we used to be, I don't know if people would find us as cool, because there's a lot of claret and blue around. I think the ground, it's a classic old ground. We're supposed to be updating the main stand. Even when we do that, it's still going to sort of keep. I mean, we probably never will. We had planning permission literally about 10 years ago, and they haven't even dug one hole. But anyway, when we do, it's going to keep the feel. I think a lot of fans these days don't enjoy new stadiums, and they like the old feel. I have to admit, I went to the Hill Dickinson for the Everton game this season. We were brilliant for 70 minutes, and then we were Sunday League, and it was the end of our 19-game unbeaten run, and we lost 2-1. But the stadium's stunning, and it's actually the first new stadium, I think, where they've really thought about where it is, what it means, the fan experience. So you go through the gates. They've still got the old bits of the old church, from the badge, and they've really thought about it. It sort of comes out of. I mean, it's in a. I say this with love, Everton fans, in a bit of a rough part of Liverpool, and you're walking down the docks, and you're walking past these abandoned buildings going, someone's been killed there. The mafia, someone's definitely been killed there. But anyway, it then comes out of nowhere, and you're like, wow, it's this gorgeous stadium. So I'm hoping when Palace do their new stand, it'll be something similar. But I think that's an element as well. People quite like Selhurst, I think, even though it's a bit run down, and from the away end, you can't see half the pitch. But I think there's a romanticism to that. And I think some of the players we've had, I think we've had a lot of likeable plays. Mark Gahey, obviously, we've just sold to Man City. Very brilliant defender, probably the best I've ever seen at Palace. Likeable guy. Ebere Eze won us the cup, gone to Arsenal. Hasn't had as much pitch time. Only good against Spurs, but hopefully he'll get more time. But likeable guy. Even going back to Ian Wright, again, another Arsenal connection. An inherently likeable guy you can't help but like, with this big smile and his gold teeth. And so I think we've always had players that people quite gravitated to, even if they weren't a fan of that club. I think our chairman, he gets a lot of stick from Palace fans, but any chairman would. I think people outside the club respect him. The South London boy, he talks with a South London accent, he clearly loves the club, he tries his hardest. We're in our best spell ever as a club, which basically has happened since he came in. So undoubtedly is our best ever chairman. Yeah. No matter what you think about how with the loyalty points, which is an issue, or the transfers, or all this kind of stuff, undoubtedly, him going on Twitter late at night and replying to fans when maybe he shouldn't, which I find hilarious, but he is undoubtedly our best ever chairman. So there's a lot of elements, I think, and I think as well, a lot of Palace, I mean, not all, because you get people on Twitter trying to get engagement and stuff, but most Palace fans, I think, are quite, I was about to say quite humble, but I think that's because last week Glasner told us all to stay humble, which is another reason that everyone's now started to rise up against him. But I think we are in general. So I think, if you meet a Palace fan, they're normally going to be quite sound. So maybe that helps as well. I have to admit, most fans I meet in any clubs are quite sound. But I think there's a lot of elements that make Palace, let's just say it, make Palace the coolest football team in the world. Yeah, we've said it now, so it's fact.
That's it. That's where you're at. I agree with so much of that. Selhurst Park's so, very authentic. I think my favourite ground in the Premier League, aside from obviously the Emirates, because that's just like my church, but I don't get to go as much as I would like. But Villa Park is the number one for me, and it's because I think it's the biggest and grandest of the old school style stadium. I think that it just rings out. The pitch always looks fantastic at Villa Park, like just the way it's set up. You can see why it used to be the FA Cup semi-finals and stuff. That it used to be used as a national team stadium for a lot of matches. So, is mid-table stability like underrated these days? Is that a thing? Do you think could Crystal Palace become or have become a victim of what Glasner's success from last season and seeing in Europe and people wanting more, or is it an expectation thing?
It's a really good question, and I think end of last season, if you'd have asked me, then I think, or any Palace fan, I think they'd be saying we have to get out of the mid-table mire, we have to push for top 8, we have to kick on. Now we're in Europe, blah blah blah. But this season has shown that you are literally 1 or 2 signings away that maybe don't integrate immediately from dropping down the league.
Yeah.
I mean, that mid-table is so tight right now. We beat Wolves at the weekend to drag ourselves to 35 points, probably just about clear of the drop. Had we beaten Burnley the week before, and obviously very Palace, we were 2-0 up, letting 3 goals in 7 minutes before half-time. Lerman scored an own goal. It was so Palace. I actually missed the 3rd goal because I went for a week. So I thought, okay, 2-2, I'll take that. Couldn't believe it was 3-2. We'd be 8th. So that's how tight it is in the middle of the table. And I think a lot of Palace fans this season, or certainly I mean, I can't talk for everyone, I've really sort of had my eyes open to the fact, do you know what, you're very close to either end of the table. So actually ending up if we ended up 11th, 10th, 12th, it doesn't necessarily mean you've had a bad season. You could have been 1 or 2 wins away from 8th. You could have been 1 or 2 defeats away from 17th. So I think it's very, very tight, and I don't think you should take finishing 12th for granted. I know that the ongoing joke is Palace always finish 12th. Well, if you'd have asked 15-year-old Jim, we're in administration in 1999, Palace are going to finish 12th for like 5 years in a row in the Premier League, I'd have bitten your hand off. I'd have bitten your arm off. I'd have bitten every limb in your body off. Like, I'd have died for that. And I think there comes complacency with that, where you think, oh, we want more. But then last season we got more. We got basically the ultimate dream for anyone of a fan like Palace, because the odds of you winning the Premier League are non-existent. The odds of you coming top 4 are pretty much non-existent. The odds of you coming top 8, okay, if you have a brilliant season, they might be on. But the most romantic, if you're going to say, of any of those achievements, is winning the FA Cup, because of what it stands for and
absolutely
our history in it. So to be there and do it in I would say a very respectable way, brilliant run to the final, smashed Villa in the semis, smashed Fulham in the quarters, and then we respectfully beat a very good Man City team.
Absolutely did, yeah.
I think that is success for Crystal Palace. And if that's all we ever have, you know, obviously that's disappointing, but fine, it's better than nothing. So I don't know. I think mid-table is kind of sniffed at sometimes, but you know, we've been in the Premier League now since 2013. So what's that? 13 years, 14 seasons, I guess, is that, or coming up to 14
seasons? Is this the longest run in the top flight?
Longest run by an absolute mile. Before that, it was like the early 90s, 4 years, or late 80s, and I think late 70s, early 80s, same thing. 4 seasons. So smash that. And every season you're in that league, you give yourself a chance of having a breakout season, like we did last year.
Absolutely.
I don't turn my nose up at it, but I understand why people do. I get that, and I think the culture of football these days, certainly online, forces fans to think, I want more, we need more. I mean, you see, it's ridiculous. You see now when teams win a game, it's all, oh, we're amazing, we're brilliant. When teams lose a game, it's sack the manager. And it literally is like week in, week, you got to that point. And that's fueled by, unfortunately, I think it's fueled by sort of media companies, fan culture a little bit online. It's all for engagement, it's all for outrage. And actually, most fans are happy if their team's doing okay, if their team gives them a little bit of a hope of success here and there. I think there's a very small percentage online that are getting outraged by that. But I'm happy. Listen, this is our best ever spell, and I've seen some incredible things in the last year.
I'm totally the same. There's a few points there. I'm definitely the same when it comes to reactionary media. I can't stand it. There's so many. I mean, you'll know as well as me, but Arsenal is such a strong presence online in the football media world that you cannot move. If we draw or lose, drawing 2 games in a row to Brentford and Wolves, we might as well have just folded the club. It seems to some people like that there was no point existing for the last week because it was relentless. So, you mentioned. Yes, so that's sort of how this podcast was born, is because them chats you have in the pub with your mates, with the fellow fan and stuff, they aren't as crazy as all the opinions that you seem to read and stuff. And you just wanted a place where we could have that as a community. And I think there's a lot of, especially like fan channels as well, I enjoy listening to them so much more because of the balanced view, the bit more detail, the finesse that they can put on with their opinion and stuff. That's where I gravitate towards that sort of media rather than the headline clickbait sort of style stuff. Previously to that, you mentioned Steve Parish being a great owner. I think, especially leading up to the FA Cup, around that FA Cup time, I thought he spoke really well. He did one really long interview. It might have been with TalkSport, it might have been with Sky, I'm not sure. But I just feel he speaks really well. I definitely can see why Crystal Palace fans would be hesitant to go against him at any point. Being that you've been successful, being you are where you are. Last question before I have a quick break then. It's sort of two-sided as well. Has doing stand-up comedy changed the way you football when you think about, changed the way you watch football because maybe you're always thinking about how this might relate to a joke or a bit or a piece of content? And has doing a podcast changed the way you football, especially the way because you feel like over the weekend I'm going to have to speak about this, I'm going to have to put a piece of work together about this, what I'm looking at now. Has that changed how you consume football as a fan?
Two really good questions. I think comedy changes the way you look at the world in general. You're constantly thinking, oh, that
Absolutely,
could be a bit. I make notes on my phone all the time. If my kids do something funny, I think, oh, could I work that into a bit? So I think, and football's the same. I did a thing. There's a bit in my show where I talk about where I sit in the main stand. It's the oldest stand at Palace, the one that we're redoing. That I can't see the goal. I've got like poles in front of both goals. Now it's not strictly true. If I lean my head, it is. But for comedic purposes, I took photos, put it online, did it in my show, got a big laugh. It got picked up by this journalist, lovely guy called Ross, and he did a bit on it. It went in the paper. I got on TalkSport, and it gave me a chance to talk about my show and talk about Palace. And so that's kind of an example where something is kind of true, but you put a comedic spin on it. In terms of watching football, because my dad is the reason I'm a football fan, a Palace fan. He is basically my inspiration for everything. He's inspiration for the way I parent, the way I react to people, talk to people. And he is a very
I can relate to that, yeah.
thoughtful, mild-mannered. Yeah, it's basically, it's not Bandit, it's John Daly, okay? He is I'm not going for Bandit. I'm not saying Bandit's got a higher bar, but I'm not saying he hasn't than John Daly. But my dad's my inspiration for everything. And he's a very measured person, and that comes to football as well. So he's never been someone when I was growing up that was ranting and raving. The only time I've ever seen him show incredible emotion, and his parents are from Cork, so we're half Irish, half English, was when Ray Houghton scored against Ireland in the 1994 World Cup and lobbed Pagliuca from 30 yards. And my dad danced around the living room. And that's such an iconic memory for me because I've never seen it before or since. And and that's why when it goes to football, I am normally quite measured. Obviously, as a youngster, I sat in the Homestale. I'm ranting and raving when I'm 19, 20, 21, whatever. But as I've got older, I now sit with Dad in the main stand, and so I'm quite analytical. So I sit behind him and his best mate Leonard, who's been going to Palace. So my dad's 78, Leonard's 84, and they went to Palace together in the 60s. And then we moved abroad for a bit, and then they got together again in the sort of late 90s, and they've sat together ever since. It's a lovely sort of story. So I now sit behind them.
Yeah.
And so anything happens in the game, I'll normally lean into Dad and be like, oh, that was a bit, or this was a bit. Lean into Leonard and be like, what do we think about that? So it's almost like live podcasting. So I'm quite analytical, and I know I've got to know a few people at Palace and work in the game. And people that work in the game are quite the same, really. They're, it's very much like a footballer post-match. They don't get too high, they go too low. They sort of analyze it. So that's very much where I am. So when it comes to the podcast, to be honest, with FYP, we try very hard to be balanced and analytical and appreciate people with strong views, but we tend to be quite sort of like on
Yeah.
level. But having said that, we have a patron as well, and I do a post match pod with my best mate Rob, who I met when I was 16, so I've known him, oh my god, 25 years, and we do that right after the game. So that is it's basically therapy. It's a very good way for us to get our feet in that if something has happened. For 15 minutes, we record it, we put it out to our patrons, and then we walk away from the ground. And I'm always thinking, oh well, another game, because I've got the emotion out, if I had any, immediately after the game. I don't think the way I view football has changed, but I certainly think comedy has made me view football and life differently. Maybe that's the way I always saw it, but it's given me an output. It's given me a reason to make notes and view things that way.
Excellent. Right. I'm going to take a short break. Before I go on a quick break, my single came out last week. So thank you everyone who's listened to it so far. You can still get it on Apple and Spotify and wherever you get your music. I really appreciate the feedback that's come back, and the response has been great. So I really appreciate that. And you can find all that at MLN the DJ and all the podcast stuff. If you're liking this and you're liking our conversation with Jim, like, share, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. And we'll see you in a few minutes. And we are back. I'm still here with Jim Daley, who will be on tour all this year. Not all this year. He's got some tours coming up. He's going to be in Manchester. He's going to be around. It's going to be somewhere within the vicinity of you. So I will link that, and I'm going to remind you again at the end of this episode. Jim, this is the Fixing Football podcast. We are here because that is the part of the conversation that you have where you would say to someone, you know what I do? You know that thing? This is what I do. I'd get rid of this is my dad's voice in my head. I'd get rid of offsides, me. Or I wouldn't let goalkeepers do this and that. Just the most random stuff. But that's what football conversation is born from. This is how you sort it out. Or I wouldn't play as so. If you are given the ultimate power of football, the Infantino role for a week, and with the executive order to do whatever you want, what's the fix that Jim Daley brings to football? And whether that you could go, I don't want shin pads, and you can't wear them anymore. Like, you can be as specific as you want here, or you don't have to be as broad as VAR. You can be as niche as you want.
First thing I would do is reinstate Crystal Palace in the Europa League. Probably straight to the final, because that was an absolute injustice. That
sounds fair. I think that's fair. Straight in there, Forest
it was Palace back in, and I think for the trauma we've suffered, straight to the final. The thing that really gets me, okay, and it's every game I watch, every single game, whether it's at Selhurst or away or on TV. The thing that I would do the most, and I've thought about this for a long time, is I would scrap foul throws. I think foul throws are completely pointless, because if you've got a rule that is implemented more at Sunday League than it is at the top flight of professional football, then I don't think you've got a rule that's worth implementing anymore. I've given away more foul throws for my Sunday team than I've ever seen given at a Premier League match. It's ridiculous. I would imagine, and I meant to Google this earlier and I forgot, I would imagine that they were brought in to stop people doing ridiculous ways of launching it on the pitch and gaining an advantage. Well, these days, particularly this season, everyone's got a player that can lob it 40 yards into the box. So there's no reason to stop, just get rid of them. Everyone can do what they want. I'm even tempted to say, just do kick-ins. Let's just make it like five-a-side. Let's just get rid of throw-ins. They're just pointless. Yeah. I hate the fact that you got these Jobsworth refs at like Sunday League Vets football, who your toe was over. Like, you didn't do it like this. Yes, I did. And also, if I didn't, so what? I was throwing it 2 yards to Steve, who's 45 stone. It doesn't fucking matter. Sorry. Yeah. Let's just get rid of it.
If it doesn't even, just lob it in. Just do what you want. I mean, it doesn't matter as long as unless you're doing it 50 yards. If you can throw it 50 yards, they might need to put some rules in place. But until we get to that point,
I think if you can throw it 50 yards, good luck to you. I think if you can throw it 50 yards, why not?
Full goalkeeper overarm.
Yeah, do what you want. If you want to do a somersault and launch it in, if you want to, I just don't care. Like, I just think we've come so far that footballers now are such finely tuned athletes. They can do basically anything. So there's no point having this arbitrary rule that none of the referees apply anyway. Get rid of it from all levels of football and just let us get on and enjoy the game. It's giving away a foul throw is one of the most embarrassing things you can do at Sunday League. It's the sort of thing that people will talk about for the rest of the season. So let's just eradicate that. And I'm saying that as someone that gives away a lot of foul throws. Let's just get rid of it. Let's just enjoy football.
I totally agree. And we employed Hector Bellerin for a long time, who was synonymous. He would 5 a season. It was ridiculous. It was like this guy could not remember what this thing you was meant to do. It's like, lad, just do it. Yeah. You know what? It's the first one we've had like that, and I'm all there for it. Yes, fell for us. Let's nail it in. I'll send a letter to FIFA, and we'll get this. We'll get the ball rolling.
And Palace, don't forget Palace in Europa League final. That's
and the Palace thing. Yeah, that might be more tricky, but leave that. Who's your favourite Crystal Palace player ever?
Oh man, I mean this is actually quite an easy one for me, but it's not a high profile player. There's tons I've loved. I loved Ebbs. Obviously, we'll always love Ebbs. Love Mark Gay, brilliant player. But my favourite ever player is a player called Matt Jansen, and he played for Palace in the late 90s. He
played for Bolton Wanderers, didn't he?
Played for Bolton. He joined Blackburn after us.
He did,
Unfortunately, had a motorcycle accident in Rome and went into a coma and had to relearn how to play football again. It was a real shame at the age of about 22. So, like, real shame, because he was unbelievably talented, bow-footed, mercurial, could score from anywhere. Beautiful 90s curtains that I tried to replicate as a 14-year-old.
Oh yeah, we all
just completely fell in love with him. The sort of player that Palace in the late 90s should not have signed. I mean, we had him and Bruce Dyer on the same pitch, and that just feels like a crime against football. So he was a wonderful player. And again, I was 14, 15. So obviously it's a time when you do fall in love more with footballers, and it's a very
absolutely
time. But he was, talk to any Palace player, Magic Matt was an absolute icon. And it's a shame how his career turned out. Could have been an all-time great. Was in the England squad for the 2002 World Cup. Got bumped for Martin Keown, and that's why he went on holiday to Rome, and then had an accident, went into a coma. So one of those sliding doors moments. He's written a book about all of that, and I'd recommend it. It's a fascinating book, and he's a lovely guy. I interviewed him a few times on the podcast. He's now player liaison at Stockport, I think, and he's such a nice guy. And very philosophical about the whole thing, not bitter about it, which I would say takes a lot of strength. So yeah, Matt Jansen for the I think we only had him for 10 months. We bought him from Carlisle for about $1 million, and we sold him to Blackburn for 4.5 million 10 months later, which for us was huge money. Unbelievable guy. What a player.
All right. Can I talk to you about Adam Wharton for a minute? Because I love this footballer. I romanticise about the idea of him with next to Declan Rice for England at the World Cup in just what would be the most beautiful midfield that I think England would have ever been put together as a central partnership. Talk to me a little bit about him, where he is with Palace, because he has had ups and downs with Palace. He hasn't just been out with injuries. He's had some, time out of this team as well. First, that I will agree with everything positive you say about this guy, because I love watching him play. But talk to me about where it's not been so good for him as well in times.
Well, first I'd say he's obviously a fantastic singer. And if you've got any weddings, book him for your weddings. He's one of those rare players that when he signed, immediately you were like, oh wow, this kid can play in the Premier League, and looks like he has been for. Mark Gay was the same thing, for a long time. I actually think he needs to leave Crystal Palace, because to not just further his career, but I think to really reach his potential and his talent, because he's clearly raw talent is unbelievable. A very European style, I would say, very 90s Italian style player. Literally got the rolled down socks and the Adidas Predators, and can do things with the football that no one else on the pitch can see. The number of times that he will switch the ball to the right, and you'll think, oh my God, no one even saw that pass, but the only player on the pitch that did is Adam Wharton. Unfortunately, at the moment, we are going through a tough time as a club, and so there's a lot of responsibility on him in the midfield to do basically a bit of everything, especially the system Glasner plays. And I actually think if he was alongside a Declan Rice for England or for Arsenal or whatever, he would absolutely flourish, because Rice would be mopping up and doing a lot of the jobs that he Wharton's trying to do at the moment. And he's very young, and that responsibility is weighing quite heavy on him. And he's had a couple of games in the last couple of months where he hasn't been focused. He gave away the ball in Mostar for the equaliser in Bosnia midweek. Had done the same thing 5 minutes earlier. So like he seems to have these games where he got sent off against Chelsea for a terrible second tackle. I could see it coming. He literally spent about 50 yards sliding, and I could see it happening. Gave away the penalty at the weekend again for another sort of rash, sort of blush of blood to the head kind of tackle. So he has that
got a little bit of the Paul Scholes about him.
Yeah, exactly. But I do think mercurial players have that, and I think that is something that comes with the territory. But if he probably needs to find an environment. I can't believe this is not me saying get him out of Palace, because he's probably the most talented central midfielder I think we've ever had. But he needs an environment, I think, for him to flourish. And at the moment, we are going through a tough time. Glasner plays a system that relies on those two central midfielders doing everything. And at the moment, there isn't really anyone alongside him. He was brilliant last season. Him and Daichi Kamada were partnered, and they seem to be able to just about do everything, but neither of them are really enforcers in that Declan Rice kind of role. We've got Will Hughes. Will Hughes probably the closest to the Declan Rice kind of player, but obviously much more limited, although has been brilliant for us, and we all love Hughesy, and he does a great job and plays passionately. But something's not quite right in the mix at the moment, and I think Wharton is slightly losing out as a result of that. But he probably will go this summer. I think we'll have a bit of an exodus this summer. And if he ends up going to a club like an Arsenal, or I could see him at City alongside a Rodri or something like that.
I could see him at City, to be honest.
He feels like a Pep player that you could see Pep developing. I think he could become play 100 times for England and be England's mainstay centre mid. He is so talented. And again, we've been so lucky in the last 2, 3, 4 years to have the likes of Wharton, Eze, Elise, Gehi, Munoz, these unbelievably talented players that normally in the history of Crystal Palace you wouldn't get at Palace. And to have, I think we probably had a spell we had nearly all of them and Zaha at the same time. Probably only about 2 or 3 months. We've been very blessed as Palace fans. So I'm just, I'd love Wharton to stay longer, but I think maybe for his own career he needs to probably move on. But he's a wonderful, wonderful footballer.
Can I ask about Oliver Glasner and where the fans are with him at the moment? Obviously, I think everyone knows it's coming to an end. It seems to, from week to week, speed up or slow down or be put on hold or whatever. There was obvious links with other high-profile jobs like the Man United job that it came up. How's it gone so wrong? If it has, was he always going to leave at this point, really, and see out his contract? And why is it soured a little bit almost now?
It's soured because of him, I hate to say. He has decided to leave. If I was him, I wouldn't have said I'm going to leave. Fine, say it internally. I think he basically he had that one press conference where, and to be fair to him, he'd been told at 10 a.m. that morning, Mark Gehi's not for sale. And at 10:30, he was told, we've sold him to Man City. And then he did a press conference at 11. And that gives you an insight into the workings of Crystal Palace. So I understand sort of a little bit why he threw his toys out the pram, but that started the ball rolling on this whole Glasner versus Palace thing. I do sort of get it. I had a job last year where I was working for an agency doing social media content and stuff. And they told me they wanted to let me go in January, but they didn't find a replacement until May. So I had 5 months basically cruising. And I wouldn't say I checked out, but I definitely had one eye on the next job. And so I kind of understand with Glasner, the difference being that the next agency that hires me, I'm not high profile in the press, and so they don't really know how I did. And in fact, I did fine at the last job. I think Glasner is making that next big role further and further away from him by the way he's sort of acting in public. But he's a very passionate guy, as most managers are, particularly at the high level. He can't control his emotions, and he cares a lot about brand Glasner. Again, most managers do. That's not a criticism. Most managers, players, comedians do, so that's all fine. But I think he's not helped himself recently. Last week, I mean, it's basically, as you say, it's been sort of a bit of a roller coaster ride in that he kicks off and then he says sorry and it goes okay, and then we beat Brighton. Then it kicks off and then he says sorry, and then at the weekend, last week after the Zrinski Mostar game where we weren't good, he said the fans got to stay humble. And as you can imagine, and as we know that with Arsenal, Man City and Haaland, that doesn't go down well, that phrase, especially after 500 of us have flown to Bosnia to watch us draw against some Bosnian
Yeah.
builders. Like, it wasn't great. So I do think that was slightly missed in translation, and he has to use that before when things are going well, and he had to apologise again for the third time. But it does feel like a relationship that's coming to an end, like a marriage that's maybe heading for the divorce courts. It's soured the atmosphere really at Palace. I mean, we won against Wolves, and to be fair to the Palace fans, there was a banner from the HF, and fair play, they're allowed to say that at the weekend, and they do have a history of going strong against managers when they think they're being disrespected.
Yeah.
The majority of Palace fans gave Glasner applause at the end of the game, and I think will support the team and the manager until the very end. But it's definitely soured things, given what we did last season. But to be honest, again, I'll never hate him for that, because he's given us the best moment of our lifetimes twice.
Yeah.
Can't take that away from him, but it's definitely soured things a bit. But again, that's football.
It's just shame how it ends. No, it is. Sometimes you want it to be perfect. I still have love for Alexis Sanchez, and I just can't shake how he left.
Yeah.
Like the stink that was around him at the time. Even with Van Persie, I was obsessed with Van Persie for a minute, and then he's up here in Manchester being a dick. I'm not. Two questions. How have you enjoyed going to Europe? I saw on your social media you was at the game in Bosnia. It was Bosnia, right? That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how have you found that? Obviously, for the first time as a football fan following your club, with these European away games, and then who is going to be Crystal Palace manager next season? So those are the two. Let's go in whichever order you want.
We were actually in Herzegovina last week, and I say that because I got corrected by some locals when I was talking to them. So,
fair. Yep.
And obviously there's a lot of recent history there, and it's very interesting actually being there and talking to some of the fans, and they were incredibly welcoming. And every fan, we've been everywhere, has been brilliant actually. We've been to Norway, Poland, Dublin, which was my brother lives in Dublin, so that was an incredible night.
Nice.
France and Herzegovina. So it's been a complete dream. It's just been, despite the results, we lost in Strasbourg and we drew in Bosnia, but it's been, we drew 0-0 in Fredrikstad in Norway, and we were awful. But basically the 90 minutes from nearly all of them been pretty rubbish, but the whole travel for every single one has been everything I ever dreamed of. And I'm in these incredible places, and I'm watching Palace with people that I've known for years, some of them my closest friends, some people you just know from away ends and stuff. And we're all simultaneously going, this is mental. This is mad. This is crazy.
We're on holiday.
This is crazy. We're on holiday. I just had 5 mini holidays. As I say, like my wife's like, can we go on holiday next year? No, sorry, I might be going to Leipzig, so I don't think we can afford it.
Yeah.
It's been, I've watched so many other teams do this year in, year out, the big teams, the smaller teams, when it was Leicester, those teams getting into Europe. To have it now as Palace has just been an absolute dream. I've loved every single minute of it. I hope it continues.
Yeah.
Should do, because we should win on tomorrow. We might not. By the time this goes out, we might be out of Europe. So, which wouldn't be terrible, because I've basically cleared my entire savings. But it's been, thankfully, I've just got a little freelance gig on the side that's come at a very good time. It's been great. And it's everything. Is there any fans of other clubs out there who are clubs, similar to Palace, who are dreaming of European tours? I would say, if it happens for you, go for it and embrace it and spend your savings, because I've had memories this summer this season that I'll never forget.
Well, I'm from Bolton, so just 20 minutes away from Manchester, and during their time in the Sam Allardyce era, a lot of my friends were off going into Europe when they were finishing, sixth some seasons, and they ended up playing like Bayern Munich, and Sergio Aguero's Atletico Madrid were coming to the Reebok Stadium.
That's crazy.
It is so crazy. And that, I remember the first game. In fact, the first game, I'm obviously not a Bolton Wanderers fan, but I grew up 10 minutes from the stadium. The first Bolton Wanderers UEFA Cup game was against the Lokomotiv Plovdiv, and I don't even know if they're still going. But I think it was around my 16th birthday, and me and my other friend, who said we were going to go to the Bolton Wanderers match because everyone was going, we went watching 50 Cent instead. And that
Wasn't expecting that. What a gear change.
Yeah, total change. But yeah, so a lot of my friends have had this European holiday where a couple seasons and see what happens, and they've been Ukraine and all these random crazy countries. Like you said, you've been on a tour of Europe. So the other question, first of all, Crystal Palace should be winning this Conference League, right?
We are favourites. We are favourites to win it, incredibly. Despite the fact we didn't qualify automatically, we're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
We are still favourites to win it. I don't know if that's because we've got a manager that's got pedigree of winning European competitions or because of our players. I don't know. I don't think. Strasbourg. We played Strasbourg when they had Rosigne as manager, and they played us off the park. We missed two open goals. We missed two very, very blatant open goals, but they were good. I think they're second favourites, and I think I know their form has dropped off since he left, but I think they probably, I would say, are more favourites than us. But with the European competition, and again, I'm learning this through being now a fan of a European club, it's all about getting through, isn't it? It's the same with when you watch World Cup. They're like, oh, Argentina were crap in the first game, lost to Saudi Arabia. Yeah, but they got through the group stage, and every time you get through, you reset and you start again. So if we can get through to the last 16, we reset, we go again. It doesn't really matter how you got through. So yeah, who knows? I mean, my dad and I have already booked a refundable hostel in Leipzig for the final, which I don't know how that's going to be at all. We'll probably be full of Palace fans. So we'll see how it goes. But in terms of the question about next manager, I really don't know, because Palace have a policy where they only appoint people out of work, and I don't really know why that's a policy. We got burned a few times, I guess, in the past with people like Dougie Freedman going to Bolton, and I don't know. So it depends who's available. I think they have a guy called Roger Schmidt, who I think is a German or Austrian manager. Was that Schalke or something like that? It has been linked for a while now. There's rumours that Southgate might come in if Glasner goes in the interim, which I wouldn't hate, because I love him as a Palace legend. I don't know if he's the right manager, but I don't know. There comes a point where you have to kind of trust the club. And actually, going back to Steve Parish, every time we've had an issue with the manager, be it a bad appointment or a falling out or whatever, he nearly always gets the next appointment right. And he has a track record of stabling things. And I think you have to kind of trust the club a little bit that they will get it right. And they might not. And if they get it wrong, the Frank de Boer 88 days, we'll remember that, then they'll get it right next, because history suggests they will.
That was crazy. High hopes for Frank de Boer.
Oh, it was.
Yeah, what a mess.
It was a weird time. That was a very weird time. He started the season playing three at the back, which we'd never done ever. And the back three was Luka Milivojevic, Jairo Riedewald, and Joel Ward. And funnily enough, we lost 2-0 at home to Huddersfield. Everyone in the stadium was like, what is happening? It was crazy. But, just another reason another part of the roller coaster of Crystal Palace.
I had this dream of, I think when, prior to maybe Emery, or maybe around the same time, but Frank de Boer coming in with Dennis Bergkamp as his assistant, because I think that had been a thing at Ajax at the time. Obviously, it did play out like that. He goes to Palace. I'm like, oh, Christ. And I think then he went and failed at Inter Milan, and no one's seen from him since. So
dodged a bullet there.
Yeah. Jim, thanks so much for your time today, mate. I really appreciate it. Please
thanks for having me.
Let us know about your tour.
Yeah, so I'm doing 6 dates. It's called Match of the Daily, as I said earlier. 6 dates I'm doing in this order. London, not Bolton. Maybe I should do Bolton. London, Brighton. If it goes well, we'll add a Bolton date. London, Brighton, Chesham, which is my hometown, and then Manchester, Birmingham, Liverpool. The Manchester date is May the 3rd. Birmingham is June the 7th. Liverpool is June the 13th. Tickets are on sale for all those dates now. And the website is jimdalycomedy.com/tour. And that's Daly, Daly, the Irish way of spelling it. So it'd be great if people planning a tour.
When you're planning a tour, do you look at the fixtures and see if there's anything, if there might be an overlap, or do you...
Yes, and I gave my agent one job, which was, please don't book any tour dates over any Palace games or any big, games around wherever we're looking at. And he's booked my Brighton leg over the semi-final first leg of the Conference League, which I think guarantees that we're getting to the semi-final. because I'm now
There
going to
you go.
miss it. I can't fall. And it's in Brighton, of all places.
There's a positive there for you. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, other than that, no, it's all. And in fact, the last date is, I think, the day before the World Cup starts, and so we are thinking maybe post World Cup, if it goes well and we sell out all these dates,
Nice.
to maybe do some post World Cup dates as well. So keep an eye out for that. But for now, it's those 6 dates. London's about to sell out, actually, so there may not be tickets for that.
Cool.
Brighton is 50%, but those northern dates. Turns out I don't have much of a following up north. So if you are based up north and you want to see some football comedy, please do get a ticket for those. I went to, as I said earlier, I went to Liverpool yesterday to record with the football historian Peter, who's a great guy. And then he dropped me off at Anfield. So I was at Anfield and I walked to Goodison and filmed a bit of pre-show content we're going to upload today, just like promoting the tour. I got an Uber back to the station. And my taxi driver, within about 3 minutes, said, "Oh, I used to play for Everton." And it turned out he was a youth team player called Phil Ratcliffe, who played twice for the first team. We had a fantastic conversation. His best mate's Kevin Ratcliffe, who played like 300 times for Everton. And Phil is going to come to the show. So if you come to the Liverpool date,
Excellent.
Then there might be a former Everton player in the crowd. So what an incentive to turn up.
I love that. Jim, thanks so much again, mate, for
Thanks for
coming.
having me, mate.
Hopefully anyone between us can rally the listeners from the north and get these dates filled up for you. I'll do my best to be there, mate. Thanks again. And you can find all the information for Jim stuff in the links below. All the links for the tour will be in the description for this video. You can find anything else related to this podcast, all the FYP podcast, on our website. I'm going to post it all over social media. So that's fixingfootballpodcast.com. Jim, once again, thanks so much, mate. And I'll see you all soon.